What's going on, YouTube? All right, let's get into it. You know I don't do that stuff. Anyway, what's up? So, last vlog, we did not have a delicious padroncito, and I was tired and I felt like crap. But now I feel much better. I'm rested. I talked to my friend Jackie Lowbuck Motorsports 516. Shout out to Jackie, and she said So the issue we were having was we were having sway bar end link binding. So we got the sway bar over there, okay? And the sway bar end link was binding. What does that mean? So basically when the suspension would travel upwards, the end link, let's say this beautiful padroncito is an end link, right? It was going like that and then hitting the lower control arm. So it would bind and it would bend. I talked to Jackie and she said, yeah, she had the same problem. And a couple of other people on EG chassis. And what I'm thinking is the case is you see that subframe brace there? So that subframe brace spaces the subframe back a little bit, okay? Now, I've talked to people with Type Rs who have the same kit on their car, and they said, no, I've never had issues. It's always been fine. Well, Type R has a reinforced subframe from the factory, so you don't need that spacer. You don't need that sway bar rear, rear subframe brace. So my theory is that because it's spaced backwards, it's now pushed further back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a bigger bar. Now, this is a 120 wall bar, as you can see. What is 120 wall? 120 refers to the thickness of the bar. It is 0.120 or 120 thousandths of an inch in thickness for the bar. And it's a 32 millimeter diameter bar. So we can measure the outer diameter and the inner diameter, plug all this stuff into a sway bar calculator and figure out effective rates. Over here, we have a 250 wall bar on the left and a 188 wall bar on the right. So what I'm gonna be doing today in this video is giving you guys a brief tutorial of how to check out your rates on your sway bar, your effective rates on your sway bar. And that combined with your spring rate will tell you what effective rate you're getting and essentially the frequency with motion ratios and things like that of the car under cornering. So let's get into it. Okay, so one of my friends used to work at the Navy Yard in Philadelphia, and they throw out these tools when they are out of tech all the time. This is a mitutoyo. I have to try and not mix my Spanish accent with my Japanese accent. Mitutoyo. But anyway, this is a precision, I think it's a caliper. I forget. I always forget the terminology because there's micrometers and calipers. But anyway, I believe it's a I don't remember. I honestly don't remember. Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to measure the outer diameter of this bar. So to do so, we're basically gonna, get it like this on the bar itself. Have to re-zero it out and just keep playing with it until that number there essentially goes to its minimum value. So we have 1.2600, 1.2605, 1.255. You got 1.251, 1.252. So it's essentially 1.25, something like that. So now it should be a 32 millimeter bar. So we can change this to inches or millimeters, zero it out. And then when we go here, it should give us something closer to what you would see on Hasport's website. So let's see. It says, it is 32. It's a 32 millimeter outer diameter bar. Just as the website says, 32 millimeter outer diameter. Now, one thing that you could do is, knowing the wall thickness, you would essentially double up the wall thickness, and then you would subtract that doubled value from the 32 millimeter, and that would give you the inner diameter of the bar. But we don't do that here because we don't make assumptions. We pretend that we know what we're doing, and sometimes it works. So gonna go and we're gonna get the inside. Well, first let's zero it out. So this is why we zero it out. See how it says 0.01? The readings drift. So we're gonna zero it out. And we will go first like this and see if we can get, let me put the phone down. All right, so, it pretty much lined up to what we would expect, to a significance of, I would say, 1/100th of an inch. 1.25 minus 0.24 is 1.01. That 7 over there in the 1,000th place might be either a manufacturing defect, a measuring defect, most likely a measuring defect, though. So what we're going to say is that our calculations are significant to 1/100th of an inch when we plug it into the calculator, and that will allow us to get a good approximation for the wall thickness of the bar. Now we need to measure the length of the bar. All right, and the bars are all the same length. So I have the 188 wall. As you can see, it's been used before. We have it sitting on the table, and it is 39 inches in length. Now, I could make my life somewhat easier by trying to measure this arm while it's on the car, but I know that the sway bar is going to need to come off anyway. So, with that being said, the arm for the hollow tubular sway bar is an aluminum arm. They do break. Luckily, this hasn't broken yet. Knock on metal. But I want to show you guys something. If you guys keep your eyes on Amazon, once in a while you will get good deals on decent tools. So like a lot of times Gear Wrench will liquidate stuff on Amazon. So like this is a Gear Wrench ratchet. Maybe it's counterfeit. It feels real. But it's a Gear Wrench ratchet supposedly. And you can get stuff 40% off, 50% off, 30% off on Amazon if you just keep your eyes out. So it's a good tip. I have a couple of Gear Wrench things. I love their stuff. I've been upgrading my tools recently because I keep breaking them. And I'm getting tired of it. I'm getting tired of, buying Harbor Freight stuff, buying Craftsman garbage, and it just breaks. So I have been upgrading my tools, which I know is unlike me, but that's how you get better, right? Now, so this sway bar, that is a 48 spline sway bar. So it has 48 splines that help this arm sit in the right spot. So you have to get the alignment correct. So in order to do that, I get these whiteout pens, and the dollar store used to sell whiteout pens. Dollar Tree used to sell whiteout pens. That's a little messed up. Dollar Tree used to sell whiteout pens that worked very well, and you would get like 2 in a box for $1. And they worked very well. But I can't find them anymore. They actually changed the pens so that there was 1 in a box at some point because of the COVID struggles. And then I don't know if I can even find them anymore, but then they changed the pens so they're really hard to squeeze. But before they were really easy to squeeze, so the paint came out really easily. So what I use is these Bic whiteout pens. They're a little bit more expensive, but as opposed to a China pen, Sharpie, anything felt tipped, these whiteout pens have a ballpoint tip that allows for flow to come out. And since I don't care about my car, you can see, so it makes these really well defined lines. It's pretty cool. And it's paint. Whiteout is paint. The person who invented whiteout was a guy who poured paint in little bottles and sold them as whiteout. It's like they teach it in MBA school and stuff. It's really cool. So you got the burns from the Padroncito, and then you got the arm. So basically traced around it to scale, and I traced as tight as I could to these holes, just with a pen. I run these pens to the ground. It's funny, like I'll drain them all the way down because they just stay in my notebook, and the notebook stays in my dashboard in the car. So it's heavy enough to hold itself down that I don't need to worry about it sliding, and voila, there you have an arm. So we're going to essentially measure effective length, right? So I'll label them. I'll measure them out, and then I will do like A, B, C, D, and then I'll be able to plug these values into a sway bar calculator, and then I'll get an effective rate for 188 wall, 250 wall, which is up there, and then a 120 wall, which is on the car. The one thing I love about these Padrones, man, the anniversary series, is they are such smooth smokes. It's like $17 for a kind of like a small one, so they're a little expensive, but oh man, they're so good. Like, it's just such a smooth smoke. You don't get sick. Anyway, I love Padrones. But all right, here is the arm. This is what you guys care about. It's what you guys came for, not cigars, although that cigar is banging. But so what I discovered was it looks like there's a 12.5 millimeter difference between each of the holes. The smallest is about 115 millimeters in effective length from here to here, 127.5, 140, and then 152.5. It kept landing in between the millimeter spots. When I blueprint something for my race car, I generally do it with a combination of inches and millimeters because I'm essentially reverse engineering stuff. So let me see if I can find you guys an example of what I'm talking about. I reverse engineered some spacers for an upper control arm, PCI upper control arm, and I sent the data to my buddy Sal. Thank you, Sal DeSantis. He's the head volunteer for NASA Northeast, and he 3D printed me some prototypes. I was playing with bump steer curve, and let me see if I can find it. And yeah, he helped me achieve that. So let us see. I'm gonna keep looking. Okay, so, I mean, as you can see, I take a ton of measurements for all of these things typically when I'm reverse engineering something, especially if I know it needs to fit. And I basically do averages, and I kind of look at the data, use basically a feel. So, like, for example, measurement E on this, I did it out to 4 significant digits, right? Down to a 10,000th. So I see I have the mode number is 0.3825. The average is probably somewhere around 0.3827 or so. And so what I do is I basically use my judgment to pick one of these numbers. Sometimes I'll pick an average, and it usually ends up okay. It usually fits the part pretty well, but it's measure, you know, it's so many measurements. And that's kind of how I do it. So but that's for a part that needs to fit in a very specific hole with a taper. What I'm doing here is a little less specific. What I'm doing here is essentially just measuring, you know, a 2D object. Thickness isn't really important. Thickness influences the stiffness of the bar, lateral torsion, which might be a factor, may or may not be a factor. But the ASR bar has collars that you lock here to prevent it from causing any lateral torsion. Well, no, it would actually allow for lateral torsion. Anyway, it's minimal. It's all spherical suspension. So, but yeah, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you guys how to plug this into a calculator next, and yeah. Okay, so this website is called gtsparkplugs.com. And so basically what we have here is a diagram of a hollow NASCAR sway bar similar to what we'd be using on our Civic. So you can see A and C are the effective length of the left and right arms, respectively. Bravo, B, is the length of the bar itself, and then ID and OD are inner diameter and outer diameter, respectively. So you plug the numbers into this calculator, and it gives you a rough idea of what the sway bar rate is, the effective rate is on your car as a spring rate. This is the formula that they give. I'm not a mechanical engineer by degree. If I have any mechanical engineers following me, let me know. But basically, they said that the guy who wrote this website said that in the book that he uses, Fred Poon. Fred Poon's book, basically, he says that it underestimates, he thinks, the stiffness because the arms are typically of a stiffer material. I'm guessing he assumes that aluminum or the steel that they use in arms is stiffer than the spring steel of the sway bar. And then he said that the splines might also contribute. But for all intents and purposes, this will get us to where we need to go. The reason being because we're not trying to understand the absolute effective rate and be completely precise. We're trying to understand the relative changes, right? So if you put a 120 wall bar in and a 188 wall bar in, what's the change in the hole that I need to use? Now, long term, I would like to do like a blade bar setup. So Jackie and I have been talking about that. And you basically would go on like Genesis Auto Parts. They make like brake parts and stuff. I think Porterfield owns them, and they sell blade bars of different lengths. It'd be nice to try a blade bar, because then you would just turn the blade and you wouldn't have to play with, you didn't have to unbolt these holes and all that crap. You just turn the blade. So yeah, we're gonna I'm going to play with that now. I'm going to give you guys the rates when I'm done. Okay, so we have 4 cases, we'll call them. 1 is the softest, 4 is the hardest. 1, 2, 3, 4. As you can see, I've used just about all of them except for number 1, because I like my cars loose. I like to party, okay? Apparently, I've been running 1,940 pounds per inch on the 120 wall bar. That sounds exaggerated, but who knows? I mean, front-wheel drive cars like to be loose, and a lot of people run really loose front-wheel drive cars, so it's possible that that's true. That's with a bending arm. So that rate might actually have been higher. So we have the calculations for a 120 wall bar. Here's a 188 wall bar. 188 wall bar, if I went to case 3, which wouldn't bind, but it would be the second hardest from full stiff, that would provide me with about 100 pounds per inch more of spring rate. And then if I went on that same 188 wall bar to case 2, that would give me about 200 pounds less of spring rate. I kind of like the 188 wall bar for the rain, right? Like if I wanted to switch it to case 1, I could switch it. But in the rain, I technically drive the car the same way it is in the dry. I just drive it with more counter steer. I like a loose car. That's how I drive. It's a preference. This right here, so this is the 250 wall bar. This is the thickest bar I have. And before I understood chassis dynamics and toe tuning, tuning the characteristic of the car with the toe, I was like, I'm going to run a full torsion bar in the rear of the car, because in this coupe, it's a slightly longer wheelbase than the hatch and the Integra. And so I was like, all right, well, because the wheelbase is longer, it needs more to rotate. But then what I was finding with that thick rear bar, that 250 wall bar, and I was running it like full stiff, like all the way over here, the rear end was lifting up. So with this number 2, this case number 2, which would be right here, okay, I can run the bar 20 pounds stiffer than what it would be with a 120 wall bar. And that's including measurement error and everything. Sorry, I was checking if the camera's on. Then if it rains, I can go down to 1640. And if I want to loosen the car more, I can go to 2370. So I think the 250 wall is the way to go. This is the 250 wall. As you can see, it's very beefy. And then this is the 188. So I think I figured out the strategy. Back here I have, here's my kerosene heater chooching away. But here is, let's see if I can find it, if I left it over here. Did I leave it over here, or did I bring it over to the table? I'm trying to show you the N-Link. So the N-Link, I fixed it, as I mentioned in my last video. I can't find it. But basically, I am buying new N-Links. Just to be safe, just because aluminum does crack, it's brittle. I did buy new N-Links, but I will probably be running the ASR N-Links. If the new N-Links are shitty, they are blocks, racing N-Links, so who knows, they might be. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for the night. I think I'm going to go with the 250 wall bar, so we're going to throw this at the back of the car. And yeah, be good. Thanks for watching.